Welcome back to Von Blues Boxing, man. What's going on with everybody? So I wanted to make this video. This is next move, Jermell the Hitman Charlo, aka Mr. Keep Running Your Mouth. Yeah. So I just wanted to give three realistic options for Jermell, aka Mr. Keep Running Your Mouth Charlo. Next three realistic options. So I was looking at it like this. What's the three realistic options? What's the three fighters that Jermell Charlo could fight that would, you know, bring a certain level of, you know, a certain level of type of level of fighter he is and things of that nature. So I wanted to look at three possible fighters that's top level at 154 pounds. Jermell is currently the WBA Super Junior Middleweight Champion, WBC Super Middleweight Champion, IBF Super Middleweight Champion, and Ring Magazine Super Middleweight Champion. So Jermell right now is on the cusp of greatness. You know, some people would say he's good, but you can't be good when you're a three-belt champion in Ring Magazine. You have to be on the cusp of greatness. And if Jermell snatches this fourth belt, the WBO title, which he has an opportunity to do against Brian Castano. Shout out to Brian Castano, Argentinian madman. So I was looking at this fight, and I was looking at three options. The third option could be Jarrett Swift Hurd. Jarrett Hurd is a former WBA, IBF unified junior middleweight champion. Jarrett Hurd is a proven junior middleweight. Only loss he had is against Julian J. Rock Williams, which was an upset. You know, kind of upset, mild upset. He lost that fight, but the only issue with that fight is that Jarrett Hurd, Jarrett Hurd just lost his father. So Jarrett Hurd, as much as time, he needs time. He needs time off away from the sport, time to step away from it, especially when you lose a parent or a loved one, definitely a parent. It's painful, and, boxing is probably the last thing on Jarrett Hurd's mind. So, so I would say Jarrett Hurd third, because Jarrett Hurd does present a real threat to Jermell the Hitman Charlo, aka Mr. Keep Running Your Mouth. It would be a hell of a fight if they fought, and it would tick the boxes. It would sell. It's a hell of a fight. But then the second opponent that I think is realistic for Jermell Charlo would be Erickson Lubin. Erickson Lubin is currently number one in the WBC junior middleweight division in the rankings. Lubin, really good junior middleweight. Lubin had the world at his oyster when he was younger. He was ESPN gave him number one prospect. I think it was 2013, 2014. Lubin was really, really, really highly touted early in his career. Very highly touted. Very, very highly touted. Still really good, talented fighter. So, that could be a possibility, but I don't know how Jermell Charlo feels about Erickson Lubin, and that fight. So, that could be a good opponent. He's on PBC. So is Jarrett Hurd. But Lubin would be a viable opponent. But I think my number one choice is currently WBO junior middleweight champion Brian Castano out of Argentina. Him and Jermell Charlo have both said they would have no issue fighting each other. Jermell spoke on it. He said, who's next. It's obvious. Brian Castano. And Brian Castano said as soon as he stepped out of the ring, he was like, I want Jermell Charlo. Both guys, I don't think, have no issue fighting each other whatsoever. Like, zero. issue fighting each other. They're both great warriors, great junior middleweights. I think they're the cream of the crop in this division, and I can see it happen. I don't think money will be a problem because Brian's gonna get compensated, Jermell's gonna get compensated. They're not worried about the money. They just worried about a venue. I think that's gonna be the only thing that'll hold that fight up is a venue, because a 4-belt undisputed title, I don't care if it's on PBC, it's on Top Rank, it's on Golden Boy, it's on Matchroom, whatever it is, it needs to be a it needs to be with a crowd. And might that be Texas? Because Texas seems to have the ability to have crowds. California's opening it up more, but Texas seems like that's the wave of boxing right now as far as having a big crowd, or maybe Florida. So I think that's his number one option. You know, it's a 4-belt undisputed fight. It's between two of the top junior middleweights in the world. I think whoever wins, legacy is solidified as a fighter. It's solidified. Like, you can, I don't care what you think about Jermell Charlo and his personality, and because he talks shit and this and that. I know it makes some of y'all kind of sensitive that certain fighters talk shit and they back it up. That's the difference. Jermell talks shit, but he backs it up. Floyd Mayweather talks shit, but he backed it up. Conor McGregor at a time, he talked shit, but he backed it up. And that's the difference. Muhammad Ali talked shit and he backed it up. Jack Johnson talked shit and he backed it up. And that's just what it is. Some fighters talk shit and like it's gonna rub you on the wrong way, you know? So I think that Jermell should, you know, and that should be the fight. Jermell Charlo, Brian Castano, all 4 belts on the line. Money shouldn't be an issue. Both guys on PBC, both guys have zero fear of fighting each other, and both guys are going to bring a hell of a fight, and it's going to be a top level fight. That's going to be one of the best undisputed fights in boxing. And this year we could possibly have 3 undisputed champions in boxing. We could have Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury. We could have Jose Ramirez or Josh Taylor, or Jermell the Hitman, Mr. Keep Running Your Mouth Charlo, or Brian Castano, the Madman Castano. So yeah, I think that's his number one option. I mean, it has to be Brian Castano. And for Brian Castano, Jermell Charlo has to be number one. It's the one of the bigger fights in boxing. So I think that's his number one option for Jermell Charlo is Brian Castano. And Castano's number one option, Jermell Charlo. So we'll see what PBC does, if they want to marinate on him more or if they want to make that fight happen. So yeah, just wanted to do my next move on Jermell, Mr. Keep Running Your Mouth Charlo, Mr. One belt from being greatness, because you're not good with 3 belts. I mean, you're not a good fighter. You're a great fighter if you already got 3 belts. But if you get that 4th belt, you're excellent. You're Hall of Fame worthy. Might that be Brian Castano or Jermell Charlo? Whoever wins that fight when they fight each other, they're Hall of Fame worthy. They got 4 belts. They're like all that, because I don't like his personality, Jermell's personality. If he wins, he's great. He's excellent. He's a Hall of Famer. Your undisputed champions are Hall of Famers. And that's just the facts. Like, you can, you know, get caught up in a person's personality and that stuff of that nature, but if Jermell wins that, he's a Hall of Famer. Brian Castano wins that, he's a Hall of Famer. And that's what we want to see in boxing. But I'm done. Von Blues Boxing, I'm out.